On a previous video, I showed you how to install a 32-bit board on an Ender 3 Pro, which also works on an Ender 3. But many people ask, what's the advantage? One advantage is you have a lot more memory for a lot more Marlin features, and one of the features built into the firmware is mesh bed leveling. And it actually works a lot better than my method. So let me show you mesh bed leveling on the Ender 3 Pro on today's Filament Friday. Filament Friday is brought to you every week by these Patreon supporters. So what is mesh bed leveling and how does it work? Well, it's not a lot different than auto level. It takes 9 measured points along your bed and then compensates for any variations. So you get a nice, smooth first layer. You don't have to install an auto level sensor. You don't have to wire anything up. It's built into the firmware. So you go into the menu, select mesh bed leveling, and then you manually, with paper, adjust each point using the control knob. So you're selecting the Z offset. Now it seems like a lot more work than letting the auto level do it, but auto level tends to do it every print. Where this, you can do it once, store the values, and unless you move your printer or mess the bed up somehow, you can reuse those settings over and over again and never have to use the probe. And it saves you installing a probe, installing wires, any of that stuff. So it's basically free. So let me show you how to mesh level on this, my Ender 3 Pro. The SKR Mini E3 board does give you a different menu. You have to go to Motion and then scroll down to Bed Leveling. And then we're going to go down to Level Corners. Now this isn't necessary. This is just an extra step to get me close. So it's going to go to each corner just like my bed leveling code. So this is getting me closer so the mesh bed leveling doesn't require a bunch of adjustments. So you don't have to do this, but like I said, it helps. So once this is done, now we're going to go back to the Motion menu. So go to Motion, then Bed Leveling, and then we're going to click on Level Bed. Now this is what launches the mesh bed leveling and the 9 points of measurement. Now we did the same thing with the paper sliding it, but instead of the knobs underneath the bed, we turn the knob under the LCD. And it's going to adjust in 0.025 adjustments. So this is how you set each point, and then it's going to save that value. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see a little better. So here I am adjusting the third point, and positive numbers take it higher, negative numbers take it lower. Once it feels good, I click and it goes to the next point. And it's going to continue to do this for all 9 points of the bed until it's got a reading of what this bed looks like. So now I can test a print. Here's the squares test that I normally do my bed level test on. And with these settings, it came out really nice. I rubbed my finger, nothing's popping off. All the corners look good. The only flaw is where I paused it. So I'm happy with it. So now I go back to Motion, go into the bed leveling menu, and then scroll all the way to the bottom, Store Settings. When I click on the button, it's going to store those settings in EEPROM. To test this out, I'm actually going to print a vase because this gives me a nice base right in the center to see how smooth it is. And you can see it came out pretty smooth except for one spot. So it's a little bit off. Now one thing with mesh bed leveling, I can go back and tweak the knobs if I want after because there's no probe to erase that. But I'm going to continue with this, let it print, and here's the result. This print came out really nice. The bottom does have that one flaw that I showed, but the next layer kind of covered it. So overall, the bed leveling worked. It stuck to the bed nicely. It's nice and smooth on the bottom, and the print came out very, very nice. Those offsets that are in the mesh bed level can continue all the way to the top, or you can have those differences slowly fade away. So at the very top of the print, it's all at like a 0 point, like it started with a perfectly level bed. And you can set at what point you want that to fade away. So a typical number is fade away after like 20 layers. So it'll slowly remove those differences so you get a nice smooth print all the way to the top. And you can do that with one setting in the LCD. Go back to the Motion menu once again, go into Bed Leveling, and then we're going to scroll down to Fade Height. This is where you set the number, how many layers you want it to fade away. I'm going to set it to 20. It's a pretty common number a lot of people use. If you have a smaller print, you can make that smaller. If you have a bigger print, you can go higher, whatever you want. 20 works pretty well. If your machine was shut off and you turn it back on, you want to make sure you get those settings loaded. Go into the bed leveling menu, scroll all the way down to just above the save settings, and there's a load settings. Click on that, it'll beep, and load those settings that were stored in memory. Normally, the Start G code in your slicer will issue a G28 to home the machine before it starts to print. Well, when it does that, it actually clears out any bed level settings. But there is a setting in Marlin that says restore those bed level settings after the G28. And fortunately, the firmware in this board I verified has that enabled. So you don't have to do anything to your Start G code. Just run your normal G code and it'll pull the information from where you stored those settings, and you'll get that perfect first layer based on your mesh bed leveling. So that's mesh bed leveling. I really like it. I should have been using this a lot sooner. Now some people will ask, could I just do this on a stock Ender 3? And yes, there are videos out there of people showing you how to install it on an 8-bit board that comes with your Ender 3, but you're going to have to take some features off to make room for the mesh bed leveling code to fit into the firmware. And that takes a little bit of effort. This one, it comes on the board in the firmware that I loaded in that video, so you're ready to go just by installing the board. Now the Ender 3 V2 does have a 32-bit board from Creality, not from BigTreeTech. And unfortunately, the firmware has not advanced far enough that they've enabled that in the V2 firmware. So you don't have mesh bed leveling on the stock firmware that comes with it, or even what they have as their latest release. Now we can add that if we modify the firmware and load it up. I may do that in a future video. Let me know if you're interested in the comments below. But for right now, if you install this board on an Ender 3 or Ender 3 Pro, you have mesh bed leveling with the latest firmware. If you like this video, maybe check out some of the other videos that are popping up. And if nothing else, click on that CHEP logo and subscribe. That way you don't miss an episode. I'll see you next time right here at Filament Friday.